your best example if you had it coming. Story 1. One morning, I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts on my way to work for some coffee. It had already been a not-so-great morning, so I wasn't in the best mood. The guy a couple people ahead of me got a large iced coffee, which is 32 ounces at Dunkin' Donuts, and he ended up being parked next to me in the parking lot. So I'm getting in my car and happen to glance over and notice that he's in his car, but his giant coffee is on the roof of his car. So I waved at him and pointed to his roof. He looked at me, and for whatever reason, his reaction was to flip me off. Don't know if he thought I was making some kind of rude gesture or I was just a weirdo or what. But I got to watch him pull up his parking space. His coffee stayed put while he backed out. But as soon as he braked to shift gears, that thing just dumped all down his front windshield. It was honestly one of the most gratifying moments of my life. Story 2. I used to rent my sister's house. She moved out with her boyfriend, now husband, and my brother, and I rented the house from her. We were in our early 20s and boys. The place was never going to be immaculate, but we certainly didn't trash it. My sister has somewhat unreasonable cleanliness standards, however. She inspects the place one day while we're at work and flips out, kicks us out 2 days before Christmas. Next, tenants absolutely destroyed her house, tore up floorboards, spray-painted walls, destroyed it. We were messy, but never would have done that. Story 3. The kids in my neighborhood, including me, like to toss snowballs at passing cars. One day, a guy in a purple pickup truck drove by, and we lit him up with 4 or 5 little snowballs. About 2 minutes later, the same truck comes back up the road, revving the engine loud. He zooms by, and his arm comes out the window holding a snowball about the size of a soccer ball. Somehow he nailed the neighbor kid right in the chest with that snowball. Kid crumpled to the snow from the impact. We heard him laughing his off as he drove away. Never saw the purple truck again. Don't throw snowballs at cars. It's more dangerous than it seems for the drivers. I still feel like a tool when I remember, even though I was only 11 or so. Story 4. This kid I go to school with. Met him my freshman year and could tell right away he was he would constantly brag about all the drugs he did, and he would call girls fat and stupid cunts right to their faces. He even hocked a loogie on one of my good friends who tried to get into his fraternity's party. This kid is also 6'3", 220, so unless you were that big, there's nothing you can really do. Well, just last week he called some girl fat, and when she got up his face, he knocked her out and literally body slammed her friend. Coming to her aid, the girls went to the police and told them everything. When they went to his house to arrest him, there was a bong in plain view. So through reasonable cause they searched his room. They found a ton of Xanax, coke, and pot. So not only is he going to jail for felony assault, but also felony drug charges with intent to sell. Lesson to be learned, karma's... Story 5. A few years ago, I was at a pub with some friend for my birthday. A few of them are sitting outside, and my best friend coughed. This apparently infuriated a girl sitting nearby, and had her boyfriend just start beating the of my best friend female, by the way, and her boyfriend. My best friend is a little scrapper, so she can hold her own in a fight if she needs to. But the guy is the one throwing the majority of the punches. Police obviously got called, and the guy legs it before they arrive. Police took statements from my friends and start trying to find the guy in order to arrest him. But even after a few weeks, they still hadn't found him. Best friend gets a call from the police soon after to say that they had arrested the guy who had beaten up her and her boyfriend. Turns out they hadn't been able to find him because while he was running away from the pub that night, had tried to jump a high fence, fallen, and hit his head, resulting in a 6-week coma. Story 6. My first-year college roommate cheated on each of the 3 girlfriends he had that year. I bet my house that he continued to do this all through college and beyond after I stopped living with him. Just last week, I found out from a mutual acquaintance that he had discovered his fiancée had been cheating on him about a month before their wedding. You had that coming, you. Story 7. One of my former bosses, he was a hotel manager for a corporate company, worked off salary, and never had a clock in. Dude was dumb as rocks if you were new and had a question. He'd literally only say, look at the manuals. Never, ever anything else. He was present maybe 2 hours of his entire week. He never came in, somehow never got caught after 10 years working there. Well, dude got canned 3 days after I quit. It all caught up to him eventually. Story 8 was driving home slowly during the aftermath of a major ice storm. Dallas FW doesn't have salt trucks or plows, so there was a thick layer of ice on all the highways, which are mostly elevated. So they take ages to thaw if the temp stays low. Guy in a sports car blows past me, and a bunch of other people just trying to stay on the road. He's changing lanes really fast and speeding up and generally being on a dangerous road. A couple miles later, dude's car is spun out, still upright, and stuck in an icy ditch. He was fine, standing next to the also fine car, spitting mad. So I'm glad he wasn't hurt, but man, did he deserve to end up in a ditch for driving like that. Story 9. Back when I was washing dishes at age 16, this one waiter would just throw plates and silverware into the bus tub I used for soaking particularly caked on messy food that would splash all over me every time he threw it in there. Eventually, I just shot him with the industrial dishwashing hose, and he got sent home because he couldn't wait tables soaking wet. Story 10, I came back to a restaurant one day a week I used to be head chef at after I left the industry. They were short-staffed and willing to pay me an absurd hourly rate. First day back, the new head chef who didn't know I had worked there before literally screamed at me and told me, "You bossy cunts like you are why I treat women like." The restaurant owner happened to be dining at the bar when this happened. He was promptly fired. I hope he's miserable. Hi, sir, your brake pads are worn done and your rim is worn. There's also a crack in your head tube. Customer, I just need the puncture, fix me. Okay, sure, it's not safe to ride though, customer. It's been fine for years. I proceed to fix puncture. Customer rides away, and not even 5 meters from the door, the rim collapses under the pressure, and he goes over the handlebars. It's been fine for years though, right? Story 11, when my friends and I dumped bottles of glue into this other kid's snow boots in 6th grade. Because earlier that day, he nailed me in the face with an ice ball and laughed at me while my face bled. His boots were completely ruined, and he couldn't go outside for a while. I don't remember the teachers doing anything about it, because we didn't have security cameras at the time, and the kid was a little, so they probably didn't care. Story 12, my friend was dating a guy, and she told me he had a 500 horsepower Mustang. I went for a ride with him. He later totaled that one doing 40 miles per hour in the rain with traction control off with drag radials, and got a newer one with 700 horsepower. I turned down a ride in it and talked my buddy out of it. The dude had skills, but nothing resembling judgment, i.e., passing traffic at 140 miles per hour with 3 passengers as of Friday. That's now his 700 horsepower coffin. Story 13, I read this story here a while ago. This guy's wife left him and their young daughter for some guy she had met over the internet after several affairs, but hadn't actually divorced him. A year later, she came back and apparently thought she could just waltz back into their lives like she had never left. By the time that happened, he was finalizing their divorce, and he had full custody over everything. She wasn't even allowed to see her daughter. Now, or when I read this a couple months ago, she lives alone, has a daughter that wants nothing to do with her, and is in debt to the guy who originally posted this. Sorry for stealing your story. Story 14, my friend. They'll call him Zeke for convenience, and I will go to this old dock from time to time, just to hang out and talk because the area was beautiful, and there's an old building where an event site used to be. So we just dig through the massive lost and found or spray, paint some hip cool art memes mostly. Well, one time Zeke brought a friend who was on Snapchat or something on Zeke's phone, the whole time yelling about some stupid breakup, like screaming. He got aggressive because we told him to chill while Zeke wanted his phone back eventually, but the friend refused to give it because that friend was it. The friend proceeded to drop, then catch his phone over the 30 feet deep water. I grabbed the phone and calmly said how that was stupid. The friend whipped out his own phone, but he preferred Zeke's. I'm still not sure, and said, watch this. He dropped the phone, missed the catch, and it sunk into the pure brown water, descending quicker than the kid could open his mouth to scream. Story 15, I came from a pretty large school that was very competitive about academics. I finished 51 out of 650, and I was very happy with that. The valedictorian, who I barely knew, said to me the week of graduation that she didn't know how she didn't have more competition. High school is so easy. Then said, like, take you for example. You're pretty smart, but you set yourself back in life by not trying to be valedictorian. Like, you couldn't get into an Ivy League with your rank, and my valedictorian title got me in everywhere. On top of that, my best friend was getting paid to write essays for people, and I knew MS. Pompous valedictorian bought many from her. I mostly forgot about this girl and moved on with my life. I graduated college, moved back to her hometown, and got a good-paying job. The first weekend back, I ran into her. She works as a cashier at Target. You bet I went through her line to say hi. I sincerely wish her all the success in the world now. But it was also good to see reality. Found her. Story 16, today at lunch, I kept telling my preschool student to stop looking under the table because he was going to hit his head. Halfway though my third repetition, he banged his head on the table. He stopped. Story 17, the dude with a Nazi armband in Seattle, walking around yelling racial slurs at people and getting knocked out. If you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. Story 18, story involving me in the mid-2000s. My sister passed away from cancer. The entire school knew about it because she had been able to attend the school for a few weeks. She had to stop shortly after, but everyone knew we were siblings. Anyways, I had this bully that tormented me fairly often, mostly stupid kid stuff. The day after, he told me in the lunch line, I'm glad your sister died. That was the first and only time I punched someone first. I broke his nose and got a 10-day vacation courtesy of Zero Tolerance. Story 19, not me, but a friend of mine did this. During the fall, his neighborhood would put bags of leaves out on the curb for a pickup. These kids would always drive over the bags, making a big mess in the street. So one day, he takes a stack of cinder blocks and hides them in the bags. He said he could fit 8 blocks in each bag, then fill up the rest of the bag with leaves. Kids drive by, aim for the bags, boom, big damage to their cars. He said they stopped that silly behavior. Story 20, when I was 18 and stupid, I met this guy through a mutual friend. Originally, he was just my pot dealer, but we started hanging out, eventually became friend with benefits, which was fine with me until all of a sudden those benefits started including stealing my money, making me fund his weed purchases so he could sell, being his personal chauffeur, and being his shoulder to cry on when he had issues with his girlfriend whom I didn't know about. He got super manipulative, and it got to the point where he was waking me up at 3 a.m. for his random favors. Finally, around October that year, I had this weird feeling that I shouldn't be around someone so manipulative anymore, and I cut him off. He ended up harassing me on Facebook, trying to make me feel guilty for not helping him anymore. In January, I was watching the news and saw that he got shot on his front porch. Supposedly, he owed somebody money for drugs. He lived, but man, there was nothing more satisfying than seeing that news broadcast. To this day, I feel like a sick for enjoying it. Story 21, one of my friend coworker's kids, was being super shitty to the animals. We train horses and take people for trail rides, as well as have a load of farm animals. He was chasing the older horses and the chickens with a stick, and they were all kind of just putting up with it. Now, my horse and the milk cow were chilling together in the corner, and he tried to hit the cow with a stick, and oh boy, neither of them were having any of that. My horse swung his head at the little and showed him his teeth. He would never actually bite or touch him, but he knows how to look scary as all get out when he wants, and the cow butted the kid into the dirt while my horse had him distracted. Guess what? He has a lot more respect for the animals now and has stopped trying to hit them with sticks. For those of you wondering why we didn't make him stop, we figure head hear it better from a 1,000 pounds animal. Story 22, non-commissioned in the Royal Navy. A few years back, had a lazy officer pilot doing my report for the year. He never filed it, and my promotion went back at least a year. Later heard he got promoted to lieutenant commander. Turns out he was faking his medical documents so he could keep flying as he was no longer medically fit. Discharged from the Navy, no pension, and a criminal record. If he was honest, he would have got a medical discharge, a medical pension. I was promoted in the end, but it took longer than it should have. Story 23, knew a guy well. More knew of him who, upon learning that he impregnated his very sweet long-term girlfriend, moved across the country without telling her, a week in his new city, and he gets in a bad car accident and is now a quadriplegic. Story 24, you know how people have these little habits that get you down, like Bernie. Bernie liked to chew gum. No, not chew pop. So I came home this one day, and I am really irritated, and I'm looking for a bit of sympathy, and there's Bernie laying on the couch, drinking a beer, and Che Win. No, not Che Win poppin'. So I said to him, you pop that gum one more time. And he did, so I took the shotgun off the wall, and I fired 2 warning shots into his head. He had it coming. Story 25, this was years back in high school. But I remember this football jock who was your typical asshat to everyone just because he was stronger, cooler, and all that jazz. Also did drugs, which he thought made him cool. Him and I didn't get along, well, even though we were on the same team, cause he loved bullying people and ID telling to off. Anyways, it was his dream to join the army and become a ranger out of high school. On grad night, our school went to Disneyland, and he never showed up for graduation. I found out later that he tried sneaking drug into Disneyland on grad night, and since he had turned 18 recently, they booked him as an adult. Can't exactly become a ranger with a record of dealing hard drugs to minors. Felt like that was payback for all the bullying and nonsense he pulled for years. Story 26, back in high school. This douchebag on the football team would routinely run around campus and tackle random dudes after school while his buddies recorded it. One day, he had beef with my friend Brian, who was a big wrestling fan at the time. He went to charge Brian for a tackle, but Brian managed to reverse it into a DDT pro wrestling move and spike the douchebag on his head. Unfortunately for him, his neck got injured from having his full body weight fall onto it, forcing him to sit out one of his team's most important games. Story 27, my now ex-wife was cheating on me with a then very good friend of mine. His fiancée was my ex's best girlfriend at the time. She discovered some less than savory text between my ex and my friend. Caught him leaving my house one evening when I was out of town with work. Everything was exposed, and for whatever reason, I took some of the blame and tried to work things out with her. She wasn't having it, said she was never happy and that we never should have gotten married in the first place over 4 years earlier. Fast forward a little bit. I moved out of the house, and I get a call from her sobbing over the phone saying she's just lost her job. Apparently, she had been bringing her new around her job, which had her working at an all-girls Catholic school certain days during the week. The school didn't like the example she was setting for these impressionable young girls, and they called in to complain about her. Pile this on top of her overall crappy performance at work, and she got fired on the spot. Justice, but wait, there's more. She couldn't afford the mortgage payment and stopped making payments altogether. They had to short sale her house for about 25 of what she still owed, credits for years. She moves back in with her parents and brings the dude with her. Within a year, she's pregnant. And although we aren't friends on social media anymore, I do still keep in touch with her father. He was more of a friend to me than FIL. And that's what hurt the most. I've seen some photos of her baby that my ex-FIL has posted, and I'll have to say, that is the ugliest baby I've ever laid eyes on. I might be biased, but I've also confirmed with others that this baby is hideous. Carm is and am now with the most perfect girl I've ever met, and we've been going strong for almost 3 years now. You, Rachel, I was at the beach, and this lady was sunbathing in front of me with one of those aluminum tanning sheets. She had her leftover food in a styrofoam container wrapped in a plastic bag, and a couple of seagulls were beginning to grab at it. About 6 or 7 were sort of pecking at it, and I got up to shoo them away. More had congregated, and I tapped her shoulder to let her know what was up. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and literally waved her hand, dismissing me, and laid back down. The 6 or 7 seagulls had doubled, and I once again got up, shooed them away, and alerted her to the upcoming disaster. She once again rolled her eyes and was clearly not to be bothered by a concerned beachgoer. At this point, I was mildly hallucinating at the edible I had eaten early and said, "Phew, wuck it," and watched about 50 seagulls slaughter her leftovers. She got up in a frenzy, birds and food everywhere. Never have I ever laughed and pointed so hard at a person in my life. It was uncontrollable. Tears were streaming down my face as she got up, terrified and shocked at what had just happened. It was so satisfying. I don't think I've laughed harder at anyone else's expense since. Just thinking about it now brings back wonderful feelings. Story 28. Listen, I thought the guy was and gonna get downvoted for this, but Steve Irwin, he went into the water with full intent of poking a stingray. Everyone was sad, but no one was that surprised. Story 29. 2 of my friends got involved in a love triangle. One the other's wife, then told him about it, because that's what a real friend would do. After a few random incidents, decides he wants the wife as his new girl, calls the other friend and tells him he's coming to kill him and take his wife highly drunk BTW, to which he was told, "If you come here, I'm going to crush your skull," and with a bat proceed to walk for hours to get there, to do what you ask, to get the beat out of him with a bat. Didn't die, but was severely beaten and took surgeries to fix things, including a shoulder replacement and completely removing about 6 inches on his humerus. Investigators said they estimate he was hit between 35 and 50 times. Story 30. The guy who assaulted my friend in high school and convinced our friend group that she was lying about it dropped out of college, and now he works at a fishing shop and lives with his parents. He also gained about 50 pounds. Story 31. The company I worked for got bought out, and one of our executives basically sold many of us out with demotions, firings, etc. It was bad enough it was happening, but this guy just wouldn't be honest and candid with us during the process. At some point, people got wise to the situation, and there were mass resignations. The executive that had sold us all out got fired one day due to his inability to retain the team and left the building with tears in his eyes. Story 32. I and my parents were on the highway, and we were at a part that didn't have passing lanes. I think it might have been National Park or something, and this guy kept on tailgating us. He almost nudged our car as well, and since he couldn't pass us, we were stuck like that until we passed the park. Dude seriously almost caused us to crash our freaking car with how ridiculously dangerous he was driving. He passed us eventually, and about 5 minutes later we saw him pulled over by a cop. Story 33. There's a video of some douchebag in a truck harassing some lady on a highway. She's filming him as he very aggressively pulls up beside her and flips her off before purposely cutting her off. But when he slams on the gas to get out in front of her, he loses control of his truck and immediately wrecks it while the lady continues to film. God, that felt good. Someone posted him on mobile. Story 34. I used to work at this burger joint called The Works. Real good food BTW, just really pricey. Anyways, this one new guy named Jay gets transferred over from another Works restaurant to ours, so he could do his coop and also go to school. Long story short, he was a pizza from the start. Came in and basically thought he ran the show, bossing everybody around and treating them all like the owner loved him, but all the staff hated him. Anyways, during one of our dinner rushes, I was on fryers and was deep frying some French fries for an order. Jay, who was on topping for the burgers, would sit there and on everyone for going too slow. We were making great time, and the food would be properly cooked, prepared, and sent out in 15 minutes max. It was honestly going really well, and everyone was doing great, yet Jay still shat on us for every little thing. He started to yell at me for not getting the fries on the next order yet. I checked the fries, and they weren't cooked yet, so I kept them down and told him they're not done yet. He muffled something under his breath and storms across the line to come check on them. Anyways, we have this one deep fryer that didn't have any basket and was basically used as a backup in case we needed to clean out a fryer during the rush. On his little storm across the line, he slips on something and tries to catch himself, but falls right into the empty deep fryer. Like I'm talking, his entire hand and part of his arm just went straight down into that thing. He pulled it out about 2 seconds later, but holy was he ever in pain. Didn't even feel bad. Rest of the shift went a lot smoother too, while his bossy got driven to the hospital by our manager. Story 35. I had a guy tailgating me on a remote stretch of highway. I was going just over the marked speed limit of 50 miles per hour. After a few minutes of this guy, just a few feet behind me, I sped up 5 more mph, but he continued to tailgate. At that point, he was so close behind me that I couldn't see his headlights in my rearview mirror. After close to 10 minutes of this guy tailgating me, I finally come to a straightaway, and the guy makes his move to pass. I didn't want to make it too easy on him, so as he goes to pass, I also speed up. At this point, I'm going close to 65 at a 50, and the guy passing me is going much faster than that. He just has time to pull back into his lane when a state trooper comes around the corner, traveling in the opposite direction. I looked in my rear window and saw the trooper slam on his brakes, put on his lights, and swing a U-turn in the middle of the highway. I pulled over only to have the trooper speed by me and pick up the tailgater instead. I waved as I drove by and never laughed so hard in my life. Story 36X dumped me for his friend. He gaslighted me repeatedly whenever I voice out my concerns about his growing closeness with her, only for me to find out that he already started dating her not even 2 months after he dumped me. They made their relationship official on Facebook in September last year, but were apparently dating as early as February 2016. He lied to friends whom he knew would call him out, but was pretty upfront about this to his enabler friends. The truth only came out fairly recently. He also gossiped about me with his enabler friends and the woman he dumped me for. She isn't innocent or blameless. She knew full well that my ex and I often had arguments because of her. Not even a year into their relationship, she started 2017 by dumping him. In March, he cornered her at an event she was staffing at and got her to agree to talk to him. They supposedly resolved things and became friends again, but their friendship soured after she publicly shared her story about being cornered. He got upset and said that she should have talked to him about the matter privately. He also said that she should have been honest with him instead of pretending that everything was okay. Now, they're not even friends, and some of her friends also cut ties with him. And not only that, some of his former friends have also not been talking to him as much because they felt betrayed and lied to when he told them shitty things about me, lied to them about his feelings for that woman, still tried to defend himself after they found out when exactly he started dating her, and cornered her. Some of them even got in touch with me just to apologize for taking him at face value and believing the gossip. Meanwhile, I'm focusing on living healthier and haven't had suicidal ideations in a year thanks to therapy. I'm pretty sure that my life, while not perfect, is better than his at the moment. Story 37. My coworker had a reputation for being an angry, shed stomp around the back room, slamming boxes around and ranting about some poor customer who dared to ask her a question. Nobody liked her, needless to say. Last week, she went off on a customer who asked her to get a couple of things from backstock, aka doing a basic aspect of her job, and got fired. My coworkers and I literally cheered when we got the news, and I'm probably going to get her full-time status. Story 38. Bomb makers who blow themselves up. In Iraq, it wasn't rare for insurgents to be building or setting IEDs and have them go off on them. Absolute favorite story was in the U.S., though. An arson investigator from the fire department was showing us a slideshow from their old cases. One slide was just a smeared, messy apartment door. Story went, some idiot was building a pipe bomb. He forgot to make the hole for a fuse. Moron tried to drill it after the fact. Kaboom, blew off one hand and half the other arm. The smeared up door was him trying to open his door to go get help with nothing but stubs. TLDR, tried to blow up strangers, just blew up himself. Story 39. A guy tried to fight me and my friend about a month ago, and he was and had been one for his whole life, but we didn't fight him because he was drunk. Guess what happened a couple of weeks after this happened? He got jumped by some strangers. Story 40. In high school, I had chronic migraines and was also diagnosed with PTSD. I was going through a rough time in my life, had to try several medicine combinations to get the migraines down enough to eat and go to the restroom without horrible head pain. When I didn't have migraines, I would go to school. This guy found out previously that I reacted badly to cologne strong scents. Every day I was in a class with him, he would spray cologne, resulting in me getting a migraine and having to leave. He had no remorse over my many spilt tears and pain. I missed most of my days in high school and flunked. I moved across the states and finally started feeling better. Got a GED. He ended up drunk driving and dying. I think injuring a few passengers. I don't really feel bad. Posted this before, but but whatever. Story 41. When I was younger, my friend hosted a party. We were all in high school. Anyhow, one of my good friends was there. Also, a kid who we occasionally saw around, who we will call the thief, was there as well. So it turns out that the thief stole my good friend's girlfriend's cell phone and an iPod from the party. We know this because one of the thief's friends ratted him out. Anyhow, weeks later, me and the same friend are out at a fast food place. I just got my drink and was waiting for my friend to get out of the bathroom so he could place his order. He just says, "We got to go now." Seemed important, so I hurried out with him. We get to his car, and he has a wallet with about $300 in it, and an ID that shows us it's the thief's wallet. The guy worked there and accidentally left his wallet in the bathroom. Still one of the best examples of karma I have ever seen. Story 42. Had been go-karting with a colleague before. I won, and he came second or third. I can't remember. It was all in good fun, but we were a competitive bunch, and I'm sure his lower-tier podium stung quite hard. Fast forward a few months, and the guy was given a free go-karting session by a supplier. Had invited everyone in the department. We're talking circa 30 people, except for me, and this was planned for months in advance. There was no conceivable way that he could have simply forgotten to invite me. Had invited my closest colleagues, and even staff who had simply sat near the department. Come race day, the department director was excitedly asking everyone if they were looking forward to it. He was a huge motorsport fan. He approached me, too, but I explained that I wasn't allocated a space. He was shocked. He knew that I also really enjoyed racing. Made a call and got my name put down. My colleague caught wind of it and cited how we'd have to have one person left behind to man the phones. The director waved his hand around and said it's fine if it's only for a couple hours. Just then, the phone rang. My colleague answered, and it turned out to be a major issue with one of our systems. He was automatically roped into staying behind to deal with the issue and missed the race. I then went on to win. Colin, you absolutely had it coming. Story 43. My mother, being an alcoholic my whole life, extremely emotionally and often physically abusive, lying about everything, being a succubus off my dad, sleeping on our couch for 10 years, even though they were supposed to be separated, insulting my friends, causing extreme emotional distress upon our whole family for over 25 years. She decided to move back to her home state about 10 hours away. When she moved, she expected everyone to come out and visit frequently and call her all the time. It has literally been a peaceful blessing with her gone. Hardly anyone calls her or texts her back, and I straight up blocked her number. She had it coming. Didn't get help for issues she's known she's had, and we're tearing our family apart. I finally feel at peace. Story 44. Every day in elementary school, this one kid would jump up and run to the door right when the lunch bell went off, and every day the teacher would tell us not to do this, so we wouldn't hurt ourselves. One day the bell goes off, and of course he runs to the door, trips, falls, hits his head on a desk, and has to go to the hospital for 4 sticks. Story 45. You guys remember that time era where clowns began terrorizing the neighborhoods of the United States. Around that time, people in my city began to join in on this. Clowns began harassing people and walking around at night with the intention of striking fear. It wasn't 2 weeks of this before someone near our city dressed as a clown was freaking shot because they scared the wrong dude. Also, clowns being sent to the hospital for being violently beaten up. That shut that parade down real quick. Story 46. Last night, driving home on the 101, it felt like every other car was the "I will drive 100 weaving in and out traffic guy," even though it's Sunday at 11 p.m. I see like 6 cars doing this. 15 minutes later, traffic jam. Turns out 2 cars hit each other and then bounced off and each hit the side of the freeway. Both cars were up. It was a very fresh accident, as the traffic was only backed up 5 cars by the time I was there, and there were no police or anything yet. I like to think both of those cars were the drive fast, but probably it was one of them and one innocent person. Story 47. I had a boss who could be a total blowhard. He could also be really cool. While I have never worked with someone who was so antagonistic towards his employer, he always stated that if his employer thought he was in, they could fire him and head sue. This guy was known to go off on everyone and anyone around, including his boss who put up with it. Well, one day he decides to mouth off to an up-and-coming young star in the organization. I quit the job for greener pastures, and about 1 year later, my old boss position is eliminated. Seems that the young star became my old boss and quietly got rid of him. My old boss was 5 years from retirement and was forced to retire early. He shat where he ate and paid a huge price for it.